My fault.
There we go, sir. Okay. So we were just talking about how big he is. Goddamn, you fill up a screen. You right now, so you're on a big monitor, and you look like you're fucking Andre the Giant on there. This is like,
Bro, the angle's not helping me much.
That's right.
My girl will get mad if I take pictures from that angle.
That's right.
Let me back up a little bit.
But, you've probably seen the show before, but right now you're on a monitor. So Brian Gregnol's on the other side. You'll hear his voice. And it'll look like I'm not looking at you, but I'm actually looking at you on a monitor.
I got it.
And we are now live, King of the Lifts, Squat Champs, and then of course video for later on for YouTube.
For the YouTubes.
And then down the road, podcast. We're holding that hush hush because we're gonna drop a website the whole nine later on. But so anyways,
over there.
what's that? Yeah. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Gentili, as promised. Thanks for sitting in with us, Steve. We were just talking about. So you were 6'3", right?
Yeah, 6'3".
And how much do you weigh?
Currently, I'm like 295.
Jesus, wept. So do you lift in the 275 class though?
I used to. So I think I'm at the point now, man, where it's getting a lot harder to, like normally I would walk around, weight would be like 280, 285.
Yeah.
The last prep I did in June, I got over 300 pounds. So
Yeah.
I think I'm at now, like, every off season I do, I get a little bit bigger, I get a little bit stronger, so it was a matter of time. You know, at 6'3", I'm one of the taller competitors at 275 anyway, so it's harder for me to take enough mass on that frame to stay under 275.
You know, we were just saying how, like, in powerlifting, I mean, we are not really a sport with tall people, just in terms of levers. Like, you meet guys, 100, like, in the IPF, for instance, they have the 105 class, these dudes are 240 pounds, cut to 231, they're fucking,
right.
There's 5'6". You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how stocky.
It's hard, man. Like, I'm kind of like one of those in-betweeners, you know. I could have done strongman, but I was always too thin, and I'm a little bit too tall for powerlifting, so it's like one of those, you know, I had to pick a sport, and I went with powerlifting.
Yeah. In terms of your levers, what do you think is your best lift that accommodates you?
Like, you know, if you just look at the percentages of them, like, I think bench press I do the best at.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, I enjoy all three of the lifts, but and actually squatting has been the hardest challenge for me, so that's been the most fun for me to try to progress. Bench I don't really do a lot for, I'm just good at it.
You know,
we're talking about strictly leverages, I would say bench press.
You know, because that's the thing, like when we were talking, and we're just doing like some background, just scoping it out a little bit on yourself, and we're like, man, his bench is killer, but like most dudes who have a killer bench, usually it's the deadlift that suffers. And Ryan's like, yeah, but this dude's pulling into the 800s too. So it's it's kind of different, you know what I mean? Like a push-pull type of.
Yeah, normally.
Yeah, I don't really know how that developed for me. It was like the first time I ever tried deadlifting. I did a lot of power cleans for sports, so I never even started deadlifting until I was in my mid-20s. And I think the first time I ever pulled, I pulled 635.
Holy shit! So let's, you know, that's a good segue. We'll back it up. When did you start lifting weights?
I started lifting specifically for football. I even remember the conversation. I was like ditching out on weightlifting class in high school, and my coach said, "You want to play for me? You're going to lift weights." So
yeah, how crazy is that you had to get talked into it? How ironic is that, right?
Well, I was 15 at that time, so I was a little bit behind some of the other guys because I had missed my freshman year of football. I missed my freshman year of high school. So the time I got there, everybody was already lifting weights. And you know, at that age, a lot of what you're doing is neuromotor mechanics. Like, you're not actually getting stronger, you're just learning the movements.
Yeah.
And I had a whole year of not doing shit. So starting to catch up. But being in there and being one of the weaker guys motivated me definitely by my senior year to put up some good numbers. So.
And how big were you when you were 15?
So let's call it like 6 foot, maybe a little under that. And high school, I weighed in for, it was JV football. I think I was 175 pounds when I was 15.
So you were like pretty lean, 6 foot, 175. It's not a huge.
Yeah, I was really lean. And then even my senior year, I shot up to 6'2". I was still 210, which is like a good musculature, but you know, I'm not built really big. You know, I think a lot of guys meet me now and just have the assumption I've been big my whole life, but a lot of muscle put onto like a thinner frame. I think like all my cousins, my uncles, my brothers, they're all taller, thinner guys. So it's a lot more work for me to put on that size.
Especially when you're like a teenager and you shoot up quick.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's easier to fill out a smaller frame. There's a 6 foot time. You need time, right? You got to work on it.
Yeah, and I kept getting taller until I was like 22. So
God damn it, you know, upset this makes me only 5'9". So, you know.
I'm just sitting here, I'm like, I got the taller part, but I never got that whole gaining weight thing.
That's right, yeah.
So you gotta eat, man. Uncomfortably so, too.
Well, that's when they told me I had to go away to play hockey when I was 18, they're like, hey, we need you to put on 25 pounds when you come back for training camp. I'm like, well, 4 liters of milk a day, 2 steaks. Then it was like, okay, I came back at 200, and they're like, well, now you gotta cut 15.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you want, man? Come on.
You showed up fat, though, son.
Yeah. So 2 weeks after dryland, they got me down, and it was okay.
Yeah.
But
So how did you end up finding powerlifting? So you started training, and this is for football? And when did you stop football? Like, were you a good football player?
I was never like a great football player. I think like what allowed me to excel in football was my ability to like outwork other people. I was a decent athlete. I never really had like the nose for football, where a lot of guys are just like very talented in that aspect. I was athletically gifted, but I wasn't a great football player, if that makes sense. Like I just worked hard. I was fast and I was strong, so they could put me in the right position. I played a little bit through college. I ended up getting hurt, so I was about 25 when I stopped playing football, and I had about a year hiatus of just like lifting weights, and then I decided I was going to try to do powerlifting when I was about 27, but I didn't get real serious with it until I was like 28.
No shit, how old are you right now?
32.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, because you don't look like you're that old, so this could have been super long ago by any means.
No, like, I've been, and initially I during my first workout as like a power lifter, we'll call it, because I had joined up a gym, met a group of guys here, I tore my bicep, so that set me back another full year of competition. So my first competition was June 2015. Oh,
no kidding. Wow, that's some pretty quick gains. And what was your first, like, what kind of weights did you move in your first competition?
I totaled 1974. I had a 695 squat, a 524 pound bench, and I did a 760 pound deadlift.
Jeez.
Just out of the gate.
But I was just looking at the videos from that meet, and I had weighed in at like 263, and I had like some of the most unorthodox techniques ever. It's just like, it's like embarrassing to look at now. Like I'm coaching other athletes and getting them in good positions. I'm like, dude, I should probably take this off my Instagram.
So they don't scroll back and be like, oh shit. Wow. So who was coaching you at the time? Did you have like a programming or technique wise?
Yeah, so how I got introduced to the sport, I was like watching some Mark Bell YouTubes, and he had talked about getting around like-minded people. So I started looking at what gyms offered powerlifting, or what were like the powerlifting gyms in my area, and then I came across Barbell Brigade. So the first time I was there, I met an old veteran guy there. His name's Larry Lurker. He coached some of the other bigger guys in the gym, and he offered to help me out for my first meet. So it was like me and Adam Rodriguez were training partners, and we were both coached by this guy named Larry, who's knew a lot about the sport, had competed a few times, but was just, he was a really good first coach for me. Put me in a good position of like learning, and I kind of came from that mentality of like, when I buy into something, it's 100%. So when he told me to take a day off, I took a day off. And he told me to rest, I rested. So he was under the impression of like, let's call it sub-maximal training. And I came from the mentality of like, if I'm not puking every workout, I'm not giving it enough. Yeah. So it was really, really hard for me to adopt his training model of like, you're only lifting every other day. You're only going to lift each muscle group once, each movement once, maybe twice a week on some weeks, but you really got to start dialing it down. And, you know, now I'm at the point where I'm like working with such heavier weights, I'm like looking forward to my deloads and looking forward to my days off, because it's catch up to my body a little bit.
You know, it's interesting to say, because a lot of athletes, I mean, you come from football, you come from hockey, and the mentalities for a lot of those, you know, you've probably seen, have some of those practices where the coach is like, you're going to skate till you're going to do drills until you're crawling off that field. And it's almost like that tough ego, alpha male type thing. We're trying to breed warriors here. Whereas with, you know, our last guest we had on here was Mike T. And Mike T obviously developed the RPE system for powerlifting in terms of like rate of, like your perceived rate of exertion and effort levels. And, you know, he was talking about how, like, your central nervous system is like that engine for your body, and you rev that bad boy, you don't necessarily get stronger. As a matter of fact, it can go the other way on you, right? And it's really different for people when they come from different sports, where it's like, you almost feel lazy because in your other sport, you kill it. But you don't realize, but then after a while, like you had said, you start noticing, man, I could come back the next day. I could come back the next day as long as I don't, you know, just floor it every single time.
Exactly. And then also you see the numbers progress. You know, I was like I said, I had a little bit of a hiatus from football to powerlifting. And in that window of time, like I was already strong, but I wasn't getting much stronger. So it wasn't until I learned how to program and really dial in my workouts where I started seeing the most success.
And did you, so are you like, when you're lifting before powerlifting, so I just speak for myself, I didn't even know before I got into sport the difference between high bar, low bar, and all these different options of like setting up with the bench press. You know how you roll your shoulders back and you want to like not basically be flat, just for the levers and better on the shoulders and better force leg drive the whole nine. Total opener, like we all bench, but we all didn't know what the hell we were doing. Did you know ahead of time, or was it this other guy when you started powerlifting who really started teaching you the proper technique?
I would say, you know, I was pretty ignorant to what techniques were used in powerlifting. I was had been certified as a personal trainer since I was 18, but a lot of the things I would research was like fat loss and building muscle. So I understood like proper mechanics, and I understood different aspects of like tempo and getting your body in good positions. But as far as like powerlifting goes, and some of the techniques, they're very specific, you know, like when you're talking about accessories, especially like spoto pressing and box squats and things like that, I really had no idea. And those are the things that are going to help progressive lift the most, is the technique of the learning how to go through an efficient movement pattern of the motion, and then also strengthening your weaknesses. And you really do need someone else to take a look at your motions and really tell you what you're doing wrong, because it's hard as athletes to admit that to yourself.
Yeah,
really,
100%.
Really lock those things in.
Do you still have a coach now when you're going into like a meet prep who's going to keep his eye on you and kind of help steer it to get that honest second opinion?
Yeah, I have a guy that does the programming for me. Chad Whitley Smith is a guy. He's done my last couple strength programs with me.
Heard of him?
And you know, he's a real busy guy, so it's hard to get a lot of feedback from him, when, especially, like, he has a lot of great athletes underneath his belt. But I'm lucky enough to be with a group. I lift regularly with, like, Andy Wong, Mason Cervantes, Adam Rodriguez. We get together pretty regularly during preps, and we all help each other out. So, you know, I get the program from them, but a lot of the technique, or the program from Chad, but a lot of the technique work and things like that I get from the guys I train with. Yeah,
they're at the, I think Mason's at the zoo, is he not?
Yeah, he's over at Zoo Culture. He's a general manager over there.
Oh, is he? Shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he's been friends with Bradley Martin since before Bradley Martin even had an Instagram. So when he opened up the zoo, Mason was the first guy he asked to do it.
Wow. See, I didn't know that. And it's kind of like 6 degrees of separation. So I got coaching from Joey Flex, and I think he's also at Zoo Culture, and you know.
Yeah, Joey and his girlfriend Tina, I see them when I go over.
Yeah, and they have like obviously a lot of their lifters sometimes swing through. I think Russell came through. There, John Hack the odd time if they're in town. It is a good place to train. You got a good culture around you, right? So if you got those kind of eyeballs on you, you're gonna move a lot quicker.
And that's like the benefit of being at those gyms. You kind of run into those guys, and you know, if you're really pushing yourself to get better at any level, you know, like it's not just about the weights you lift, but if you just have that mentality of like showing up every day and working hard, people take notice. Yeah. And like people definitely want to be a part of that.
How much easier is it to show up knowing like guys like Mason, and like you got some legendary people in there. You know, you got some people that like everybody knows about and been in the game for years. It's a lot easier probably to show up, smash some weights, and knowing you got cats like that around if you go to the certain gyms than as opposed to, like, do you train by yourself very often?
Yeah, man. You know, like I opened up a little studio gym. It's like literally 15 seconds walk from my door to door. So I train there primarily, and you know, for me, I'm internally motivated. So like I don't need a lot of other people around to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But going up to those bigger gyms, like, it's definitely a different environment.
Yeah.
Having those people there can definitely help. But for like the day-to-day stuff, man, I'm pretty much by myself.
No shit.
And I like it that way, you know. Like when you train alone, it's like we talk about that external stimulus of having other people around, and when you're regularly doing it without them, when they're there, like in the presence, big crowd, in front of a big competition, like it only helps you even more.
That's true. I mean, it's kind of like, in that respect, like pre-workout, you take it every day, eventually your body's like, whatever. Yeah. You take it every now and then when you got a big workout coming, then your body's like, whoa, and it becomes special and you react in kind, right?
But I mean, especially when you got like a big squat coming, it definitely gives you a peace of mind knowing you got those guys around in case something bad goes happen, they can take the weight off you.
That was my next, so that was my next question, is because you got some big benches going. You know, we were just posting like 500 for sevens and stuff like that. So have you ever hit like things like bench and squat when you're solo and had a couple moments you're like, oh shit?
You know, when I got something really big going on, I try to grab, I make sure the right people are in place. It's like a lot of those videos, you see my girlfriend spotting me, she's like 125 pounds, like everyone, right? There's no way she's going to be able to take that weight off you.
A 500-pound row is going to be tough.
Putting her in a bad position, you know, like those are not PRs for me. Like they're definitely weights I'm more confident in, but
she's not so much a spotter as she is a witness. To tell the doctors what happened and relay.
Like if I'm in a random gym and ask somebody to like lift me off with 5 plates,
that's a bad idea.
They like muscle the shit out of it and just basically drop it on you. Like, she's able to lift it off to a point where I can get my positioning correct, tuck my elbows in and lock it into place without giving me too much help. So I actually prefer when she does it rather than like some random guy.
You know, like it's true. Same thing with like my girlfriend. I do the same thing, and it's true where you ask a dude to lift you off, especially if it's like nowhere near the weight you got, but if it's more weight than they're used to, they feel like they're helping you by letting him feel me lift it. And it's like, dude, you're gonna pull my shoulders out of place.
I've been in commercial gyms and had people straight up tell me no.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like, shit, I don't know if I want that responsibility.
You know what I'm saying? You know what? I just can't do that today. I tried back yesterday, my lower back's a little tired.
That's right. So in terms of when you started powerlifting and working with Chad Wesley Smith, if we dive in a little bit into the programming, do you prefer doing RPE-based, percentage-based, or I think we're talking, because we've had a bunch of Juggernaut athletes on here.
I think Chad's base percentage.
Are you percentage-based, or how does your programming look?
Yeah, I mean, it's percentage, and he dials in the numbers for me. So like he just gives me rep ranges on certain lists, and then top sets or specific numbers that I got to hit. So like it's worked out well for me, and I'm not a real big fan of the RPE just because, you know, that's more day to day, and like if I know I got a big lift coming, I know what I got to do to get it done.
Yeah, see, it's interesting because even like Mike T, who developed the RPE, says, you know, sometimes you need, so you have the RPE as kind of a fallback where like, hey, look, pick a number, shoot for the specific numbers, but if it's going to rev the engine too far when you get under the bar and you're like, oh shit, like this, I might hit this, but it might take a whole lot more out of me than it should.
Right.
Keep that in mind, type deal.
Yeah,
right?
and like I definitely do, even with the top set. There's times like I tweak the shoulder and my back's hurting, and I gotta drop the numbers than what's prescribed. But at least you know where you should be. Yeah. And it gives you a sign for that.
Yeah, like an anchor, and if you sway either which way, that's fine. But you have that anchored number, where it's like, all right, don't just make up your own. Now you're saying, so he'll give you a number and tell you rep ranges. So you actually. He picks the weight, and you pick how many reps you hit it for within that range.
Like all the rep ranges are prescribed.
Okay.
You know, and I'm talking more accessory work. When the top sets are generally like they're programmed 4x6, 4x4, 3x4, whatever the day has, and then there's a weight range. So it'll be like if I'm benching anywhere from like 405 to 455 for this particular set, and then I kind of like fluctuate through that. Whereas like I'll take a few at the lighter weight, and then if I'm feeling good, I'll make a jump. And you know, if I'm not, I'll just try to stay at the bottom of that weight range. But at least I know I'm getting the minimum amount of work done.
And how often, in terms of your splits, is it that you squat, dead, bench? In terms of, I know like there's different peaking seasons, like there's volume and tapering, but just a little bit of a glimpse at that.
Yeah, so I would say like during my strength phases, like off season, I kind of do my own thing, and like I check in with Chad, and like we develop. Definitely there's a strategy to that. But with my when I really start gearing up for meet, I start with strength phases, and what that looks like for me is 2 weeks dedicated to squats, 2 weeks dedicated to upper body, and then 1 day of deadlifting with a squat accessory. So generally, I'm doing like 3 days a week with squatting, 2 days a week of benching, and 1 real day of pulling. Days I do deadlift accessory work.
So you'll do like when you do 2 weeks squat focus, and then you kind of shift gears into bench focus, and all of a sudden you do bench more often?
No. So it's 5 days a week. It's two. It's basically two of the same motion. So I bench twice a week, I squat twice a week, and I deadlift twice a week. Yeah. Every.
Okay. And then in terms of rep ranges, that'll kind of just change as you get closer. Do you do like often singles and stuff like that?
When I do peaking, yeah. So like when I 8 weeks out is generally when I start a peaking phase. And then that shifts from a lot of volume, I deload, and then it's basically peak weeks, taper, and every peak week gets a little heavier and heavier, but it's pretty much all singles at that point, with the exception of deadlift. I only really deadlift heavy twice in a peaking phase.
You know, it's interesting that you were saying about peak weeks and taper, because Chad kind of, I think when we had Kristen Dunsmore and then previously Marissa Inda, he kind of figures out your little mini cycles in terms of your nervous system goes up, and then he doesn't mind having like 3 weeks and then a small little almost deloaded taper, and it can be fairly often where some people would be like, man, am I deloading too often? But he kind of has these little mini peaks, so you have time to recover and then ramp it back up again right up until the meet.
Yeah, I don't know too many people that have ran Chad's program that would say that he deloads you too often, because like what most guys are complaining about is it's hard to recover. Yeah, he beats the shit out of you with a lot of volume, so trying to keep up with that is a task within itself. Yeah, so you're almost looking forward. I remember one of the first times I worked with him. He's like, so how are you feeling? Checking in with me, and I'm squatting 3 times a week, benching twice a week, and pulling heavy once a week, and I'm like, man, you know, like with a deload every 3 weeks during those phases. Yeah. And the first cycle I was fine. I was like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. You know, this isn't so bad. By the second strength phase, I remember like waking up out of bed and just like hating life. Yeah. Patient with him. I'm trying to eat. I'm trying to sleep. I
think it's this cord.
Is it? Go to the gym fatigue is part of your program now. Like you just got to factor around it.
Yeah. And so in terms of like the fatiguing and whatnot, so you have, is it roughly like 3 weeks before you do a little mini taper?
3 weeks, but I'm sorry, yeah. What are you asking me?
For your cycles, is it 3 weeks and then the mini taper? Is it 4 weeks, or how many weeks in a row?
Well, during the strength phase, it's 3 weeks and then a deload. Yeah. But when I'm peaking, it's basically every other week. Like, and when I say taper, there's a difference between taper and deload, right? Yeah. Okay. So, during that 7 weeks, you deload going into it, and then you peak and taper up until about 2 weeks out, and then there's about a 4-day deload, and then you prime yourself for the meet and go crush it. So it's not a whole lot of rest in those last 7 weeks.
What would those tapers look like when you say taper then?
You know, like I think each athlete kind of does what they need to do to survive. So there's like prescribed weights, but a lot of times for me, I think I'm on the higher end of recovery. Mm-hmm. So it takes me a little bit longer. So I know, you know, as long as I'm hitting all my top sets, I kind of do what my body tells me to do on those tapers. Mm-hmm. There's times I'm like prescribed a 4x4, but if I'm elbows are really hurting after bench, I only hit 2 sets.
So basically, a taper would be same type of rep ranges as the previous, only just the weight comes down, so it beats you up a little less, and you have time.
A little, like not as much volume has like the strength cycles, but definitely more than the singles, you know, like when we're working up on a peak, it's pretty much like work up to a heavy single and then a little bit of back down work. That's what the peaks look like. And then the tapers are definitely a lighter percentages. Let's call it 70 to 75%. You run 4x4s and 3x5s, and over the course of that 7 weeks, gradually you're going to taper off on the volume side of it, and the weight percentages increase slightly.
And then when you enter into your deload phase, is it almost nothing, or is it just like some active recovery stuff, or?
For me, it's mostly active recovery, and I've generally followed like the 3x3 rule at 50% just to do something, but I've never been written out a deload program. He just tells me, like, he's like, if you need to take a week off, take a week off.
And do you take a week? Is that usually how long do you like before meet?
For deloads?
Yeah.
Well, the deload I'm talking about is during the strength cycle. During meet prep, it's 4 days, and then I do a priming day, would be the Monday before the meet. So I lift on Sundays, or usually Sundays. It would be that Monday, Tuesday off, Wednesday I'd come in and just do a warm-up, and then it's 4 days.
Yeah.
Or I don't touch a weight, and then I'm ready to go.
Because there is times when if you deload almost too much, too far out, you start getting a little bit of stale. You know,
that's what I've heard that before, but it's never really affected me. I've taken time off due to injury and other things. And a lot of guys are like, "Oh man, I don't know if I only lifted heavy the Monday before my meet, I wouldn't be able to." Know. Maybe I'm different in that sense, but I'm always ready to crush some weights. You don't need to keep. I don't need to stay warm, man. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Do you do stuff like walkouts with the heavy squats to prime yourself? Be like, I'm gonna see you next Saturday.
I used to. Chad doesn't program that much, and like I've cleaned up my walkout a lot. Like when I first started, it was really bad. Like I just don't know what it was, but I had pretty rough shakes with heavier weights, and now that it's gotten better, I don't spend too much time with it. I used to do a lot of like reverse man stuff and things like that, but I've gotten away from it in the last year.
Yeah. Do you do, in terms of what Chad's programming, and you mentioned like spotto presses, etc., what are some of those assistant stuff that you think have really impacted your bench? Because you get a monster bench. And obviously your body is built for benching, but what are some of the things you think have really helped you move your bench?
Yeah, I think working with heavier dumbbells has allowed me to progress, and also...
You know, because a lot of people don't post the dumbbells, so people just see what they see on guys' benches, and like they're doing the actual bench work, and totally forget about stuff like dumbbells. Yeah,
and I think it's essential. You know, I've had training partners that would not do it. Like, oh, if I want to bench more, I got to bench more.
Yeah,
it's not the case. Like sometimes getting away from the actual movement and doing more accessories is which I encourage in off-season programming. Then a lot of times you come back to the bench and you're much stronger.
What does your dumbbell sets look like? Like how much dumbbells in terms of rep ranges would you do?
Well, before I got into powerlifting, and something I still do in my off season, I used to follow and adopted. I don't know if you're familiar with Dorian Yates.
Hell yeah.
So I kind of follow that philosophy of like working up to 2 sets all out, and then kind of doing a lighter base exercises after that. So I'll work up to like what I can do a maximum weight for as maximum reps. I take about a 2-minute rest, 3-minute rest, and I try to do it again and try to match the previous set, or at least get as close to it as I can.
And do you do stuff like flies and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. Like I said, man, I came from a background of more personal training base, so like a more holistic approach. If you want to call it bodybuilding, that's similar, very similar. But I do a lot of the motions that most people don't. You know, like I'll spend time working cables and dumbbells and working flies and building up my delts and things like that, where a lot of, you know, old school powerlifting mentality is like barbell based exercises.
Yeah.
Only based.
Yeah, and it also helps like even things out because it's unilateral movements, right? In terms of like one arm takes that load. No matter what, like sometimes if your shoulders are slightly off or you got an injury, you start compensating and weird things start happening with the barbell. But when it's dumbbells, each hand has 100 pounds and that's that. You know, each shoulder is going to be pressing and you know this, right? So you immediately see in terms of tweets.
If you could take that one step further and even like you said, unilaterally base and just use one side at a time and you could kind of feel the differences. So you like a lot of times we're doing things together. It's hard to tell what's doing what. You know, like oh, it feels a little tighter on the shoulder, but when you really separate the motions, then you can really start to see the compensations.
What do you think? What is probably like some of the biggest mistakes you see people doing when they do want to improve their bench? Because for a lot of people, like everyone sees the memes. I'm not really a bench guy. In terms of my list, squat deads is more my thing. And you see a lot of people being like approaching bench like that's the intermission between squat and bench, or sorry, squat and deadlift. You know what I mean? And people struggle. People struggle with that bench. Like bench, if you don't have it, is very frustrating with people. What do you think some people are doing wrong where you can help them out? Like, look at. Is it like whether it's accessories or whether it is, you know, start doing board presses or what are some of the things you would say, look, this is going to help you out and kind of change it?
Well, I probably like separate it into two groups because there's like the guys that follow powerlifting as a sport and then there's guys that are like real powerlifters, right? And like the guys that are following it as a sport, I'm kind of grouping as guys that aren't programming, aren't really competing. They just like lifting heavy and like watching other people do it. But I would say that what I see the most in most gyms is they're maxing out every day. They're not following the program. They're just kind of going, hey, well, I feel good. I'll make a jump. And that's the fastest way to take yourself away from the bench press is an injury, and you're gonna run into that a lot more if you're not structured. So I would say for the people that aren't running programs, that would be the biggest thing you could start doing right away. The people that are currently running programs, a lot of powerlifters I've talked to, they don't spend enough time with the accessory work, and not specifically for bench. They don't do enough back, they don't do enough rows, they're not building up their shoulders, they're not spending enough time developing the upper body mass you need in order to support a bigger bench.
Yeah. That's very true, right? Yeah. Because a lot of people don't think, like, your back is huge when it comes to bench press, when you got to lock those lats. What are some of the things?
Well, you'll have a conversation with somebody and like, oh, like, what do you think helped your setting up your bench? And I was like, man, the minute I learned how to engage my lats on the eccentric portion of the bench, like my back started blowing up. And they like look at me with this look, like they have no idea how to do that, how to engage the scapula, how to get that lat to take over during that, almost like you're pulling the bar into you. Yeah. And when you can figure that out, and it starts with learning how to activate the muscle by itself through rows and cable extensions. Yeah. But when you start to do that through the bench press, like it just adding pounds becomes easy.
Yeah. So what in terms of when you like bar path for bench and you're bringing it into your chest, do you have like in terms of wrist? I don't know if you can see me here. Is your hands like wrist straight up like this? Do you have a curl and is the elbow straight under the bar?
Neutral wrist. I like that nice and locked neutral wrist.
Yeah. And you have the elbows tracking underneath the bar?
Yeah, right underneath the wrist too. So it's like elbows, wrist. It's a little bit away from the shoulder as you're coming down, but I like a straight line. Okay. And in terms of where you touch point, right on the abs, or is that going to change depending on the person's arm length? That's going to be totally anatomical, right? Like depending on how long your arms are, where that position is. Like it's changes for everybody, but you can kind of see when someone's reaching. Like they're, that wider grip, aiming more for the belly with a big arc. Like there's different bar paths for different setups. Yeah. But for me, it's like right under the nipple line, like right at the chest. Yeah. And would there ever be a case where you would say to have not a neutral wrist and to have it bent? Because I don't know what the necessarily benefit is, but it feels like it'd be resting past your wrist and just like cranking it too much would be harder to press that way, but some guys actually like to lift like that. Yeah, I mean, I train with guys that lift like that, and I ask them about it. This is what you're comfortable doing, I don't like it. I wouldn't ever coach somebody to do it, but if they're doing it already, is it going to make or break 50 pounds on your bench? Probably not. Yeah. I guess if you start on a certain way, you don't want to break whatever's moving. It's more important to look at the other mechanics of it, and that's kind of preference, right? Mm-hmm. And you were saying also in terms of shoulders, a lot of people don't do shoulders in powerlifting because they think benching and dumbbells is enough. And you get programs for people. Very rarely do you see a lot of shoulder work. Some here and there. What kind of shoulder work do you do? Well, I'm a big I don't do a whole lot of overhead shoulder pressing. I do a little bit, mostly higher incline, but for me, a lot of the shoulder work is going to be rear delt and medial delt focus. So like a lot of lateral raises, upright rows, some kind of rear delt flies. Like I like to build up the musculature around the assistance of the bench. So like the back half of the shoulder.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you think probably a lot of people don't do enough of that as well when it comes to assistance.
I don't see it. You know, like I haven't read a whole lot of other people's programming. Like I've definitely read a little bit on some of the books that are out there, and I've seen what my friends are doing. But you know, as far as individually coaching based, I get a lot of guys that come to me, and it's very foreign to them. They didn't spend a lot of time doing it.
And what do you feel about? Is there a place for training biceps to thicken up the arms?
Yeah, definitely. Like I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time. Like you know, powerlifting is such a demanding sport.
Yeah.
You have to segment your time into the order of importance, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't dedicate a whole day to it. But
No.
especially if you're like off season or not meat prepping and you got some extra time, or even like, you know, you're not worried about beating up your body a little bit more. I think it's more important to push those things. But during prep, even I still do very light dumbbell bicep curls very close to my meat just to help out with tendonitis.
Yeah. Because you could get, I guess it evens off the body, it makes you more balanced.
And more blood flow, and like you know, a little bit of trauma is how we signal our body to repair itself. So
That's
if
true.
you're not doing anything, it's not going to repair at all.
Yeah, and it honestly, it does not take much to hit some biceps. I mean, you got 10 minutes. Everyone's got 10 minutes to blow up the biceps, right?
And like, you'll meet guys that don't know much about lifting, and they're like, everybody's impressed by arms, right? And
Yeah.
like, what do you do for your arms? You're like, I don't do much, man. Like, I do a lot of pushing, a lot of pulling, but as far as like arms go, it's very little.
Yeah, that's what I like. In terms of like a 300-pound man like yourself, even you who's like a huge guy, your bicep, how much tissue is there? Maybe a couple pounds. So you don't need to do 45 minutes for 2 pounds of body. You know what I mean? Just 10 minutes.
There was a time when I was a younger man, like I used to train arms every day.
Yeah, I think we all been there.
I'm a big believer in like trying things out for yourself. You know, a lot of guys have all these ideas of what exercises do and don't work, but they haven't done any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I even tried CrossFit for a while just so I can get an opinion on it. Like I like to, very anecdotal. You know, I like to experience things so I can have a true opinion, but. When I was trying to get my arms bigger, I trained arms every day. It didn't fucking help, man. I kind of learned that like your arms are going to grow with the rest of you, so you spend more time focusing on the things that do work, like big compound motions, and then in the beginning of your workout, and then you know you don't need to spend as much energy doing the isolational stuff at the end.
Yeah. In terms of those big compound movements, do you do a lot of variations? Like in terms that you mentioned, spotto presses, etc. And how often do you put those in there into your programming?
Again, depending on the phase. Like when I'm in meat prep, peaking. There's very minimum of that. Like I would say, it kind of sticks to spoto and overload, where I use the slingshot. I think that's for benching.
Do you like the slingshot? So you do think that it's, and just so people who are watching may not know, spotto press, of course, is you stop. How far away do you stop at your chest?
For me, it's about 2 inches off the chest.
Okay.
And I like to say you bring it to that point right where you would need to drop it into the chest, but you can still kind of maintain tension, almost as if you're sliding your knuckles across the bar. Mm-hmm. So you kind of keep that tightness in, focus on the chest, and then press through using the tricep.
Gotcha. So that's probably, if anyone's trying to think of where they should drop it, or stop it, I should say, it's right before you drop it into the chest then?
Yeah, like that motion, like everybody has that segment of the bench where it gets a little bit loose, kind of sinks in, like right before that. You got guys cutting it high at like 6 inches and it's not really helping. So it's like you want to take full control of the weight, bring it lower than you would for a block press, and then kind of hold it there for a split second, just really gaining that contraction and then exploding out of it as fast as you can.
And in terms of for the slingshot, how would you program that into? And do you think is the slingshot basically just so you feel more weight and you have the full range of motion with that weight, as opposed to like a board press where you may feel more weight but you don't have the full range of motion, your groove might change a little?
Yeah, I think learning but also there is, like with a board press, it stops you at a certain range. Having the full range, like the slingshot's not doing all the work, especially when you unrack the weight. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, you slingshotting 635 pounds. It's not doing shit at the top. So you got 635 pounds.
Yeah.
And So we talked about loading the CNS, right, and how that works.
Yeah.
And the more often you get used to that weight, it's not gonna be such a shock when you try to attempt it raw. But there's definitely like use and abuse of the slingshot, right? Like you see some of these guys and they're just kind of hammering it out. Like I try to implement it as far as programming goes. I'll take it after a heavy single for my top set. So and then I'll try to jump like 20%, 15% with the slingshot, but use the same exact technique. So I'm going to bring it in the same speed, hold it for a pause.
So you change nothing when you're wearing that?
No, mechanically, no.
Okay.
Mechanically.
Because I've tried that, the slingshot, and I mean, maybe I got to spend more time with it, but it just felt so freaking weird, and I'm worried it's going to make me skull pressure this freaking weight, and I'm going to be wearing
The first time I used it, I went and I got the Mad Dog, which is like the heavier one, because they're like, oh, if you're benching over 400 pounds, you should use this one. I didn't know really what I was doing. I just kind of bought the one that had the most weight added to it. So I brought it down. I had like 315, not knowing you needed 405 to even touch your chest with that thing.
Jesus.
It sprung out, my wrist went limp, and I dumped it on my chest. Put it in my closet, didn't use it for a year. I'm like, fuck that. Then I met a group of guys, like I said, at Barbell Brigade that were using it, and they really encouraged me to try it. And I used a different tension with the reactive and the original, and then I learned that it's a really powerful tool when you know how to do it, right? But I think most people's mistake is doing what I did personally, trying to add too much too fast, but then also you're not buying the right size. Like I get a triple XL, and it's not doing a whole lot for you at the bottom of the press. You know? And I've used a 4X too, where it's just a little bit looser. It's just giving you a little bit of support. Like if you're trying to squeeze into a large when you should be wearing a double X or XL, then it's going to physically change the mechanics of the motion. But if it's loose enough and you can set it up right, it's just going to give you enough to what you need.
And how often because you use slingshot?
Yeah, I got mine. But it's same. It's programmed in. It's not like and usually for me, it's like not every week, but every couple weeks at best. Kind of thing.
Is that you two as well? Like, how often do you guys use these things?
I only use it during my peaks, and I'll use it every third bench workout. I think like I said, every single I take, then I do a little bit of overload with it. But in the off season, I don't really use it much.
Yeah, because I would. It's almost like I want to get into it and start trying it, but you'd be almost hesitant to program for some people because they're gonna like fucking kill themselves.
Oh yeah.
Right? There's guys I see that use it every week. You know, they don't bench without it. Which like I could see if you got a bad shoulder and you're trying to get a little bit of work, like some work done, especially with triceps and in that sense. But as a powerlifter, there's definitely a rhyme and a reason to use it.
Yeah. How about blocks? I mean, you see some big guys, all these like TD, who's a phenomenal bencher. Some guys like using blocks. Do you ever use blocks, or are you just more or less a slingshot guy?
No, I use blocks as well. I think it's like we talked about. There's some differences between the two, and was a long time I couldn't use blocks. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the video where I dumped 455 onto my sternum, but that's
we didn't see
it. Bruise all the way down. So there was about like an 8-month period I couldn't really do block presses because I would slam the weight into the block and it would just re-aggravate that same injury.
Yeah. Is that what the worst injury you've got powerlifting?
Nah, I tore my bicep. That was much worse. Like the dropping the weight onto my chest was it was painful, but it wasn't horrible. Like I was benching 3 days later after that, so it didn't stop me from doing anything. I was actually prepping for the LA Fit Expo, but it definitely lingered a lot longer than I would have liked.
Yeah, and the LA Fit Expo were you at the most recent LA Fit Expo?
I was there, but this year they separated the powerlifting from the supplement side of it. So like I was over working with the Beast Sports Nutrition booth, so I didn't actually get to watch it.
Because man, that's a huge event. Like you get a lot of people showing up for those LA Fit Expos and a lot of big name powerlifters.
Yeah, there was quite a few epic lifts, and I'm kind of mad that I missed.
Yeah. And who are some of the people that you like to watch?
Oh man, like like the sport in general anybody crushing weights. Like I hate to single people out, but I got a good group of friends out here. I enjoy watching them lift. There's a lot of younger guys that are coming onto the scene. It feels like every time I check your guys' site where you guys are reposting people, there's someone new on site.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy because we've had a couple of interviews and we're like, how long have you been lifting? Some of these people like 2 years, 3 years, like how this shit?
Yeah.
People come out of nowhere on you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like I think it's awesome and it's a testament. You hear some of these arguments of like what happened to the sport and things like that, in which it's hard for me to have a real opinion on it being so new to it myself, but like I just see it as an evolution of anything. The more people that get aware of it, the more types of people you're going to get, and from that, there's going to be different segments. But I think it's amazing that, especially when you look at how many females are starting to enter the sport. Like,
it's insane.
I think it's really cool, man. Like, you know, powerlifting is kind of a sport that anybody can participate in and anybody can get better at. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, you got to be so tall to play basketball. You got to weigh so much to play football. Like, you're either built for certain sports or not, but powerlifting is something that everybody can kind of participate in one way or another, and it brings a lot of different types of people together.
You know what, like it's true because we have like weight classes, age groups, you know, male, female, and everybody's on and you'll all be at the same event. Like it brings and like you said, in terms of body size, shapes, and sizes, come on. You got guys that are 6'3" like yourselves. Yeah. You got dudes who are like 5'5", you know, and you can make it work. You know, you got from conventional.
We train next to each other, you know, like we can run this program. Like there's going to be some changes, but you know, we can all be squatting on the same day, benching on the same day, and it brings everybody together.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So Sports Illustrated, this is a few years back, they had articles where they actually asked all these Olympic athletes, what are the 3 main exercises that you do? And no shit, bench, squat, and deadlift were the most common amongst them because all of them had singular different ones that they would add for sports specific, obviously, but just for their base, they said the most common. And so that's why I think like powerlifting can be popular because whether or not you kind of touched on it earlier, whether or not you are a power lifter, a lot of people lift, a lot of people squat, at least squat for your sport or bet. You have a barometer of what's big and what's not big, and you could be a fan in terms of that and just follow it while even training for other sports. You know, and I've had even people come and bring me into strength and conditioning just for weightlifting, and these are like hockey players, football players, etc.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, like the difference between that and Olympic sport is there's very little skill involved with what we do. Like, I mean, you definitely have to learn the technique, but anybody can get better at it. Whereas, you know, some of these other things, it's very hard to gauge improvement. You know, like if you can track how many free throws you hit, you can track how many yards per game you could carry a football, but not everybody's going to get those chances. You know?
Like your team around you can make you your whatever points a lot better. Whereas powerlifting, you got a number.
Yeah,
there's a numerical number.
Not everybody's going to be a record holder or a multiple-time record holder, but you can definitely start and have a total and build off that total. And if, you know what I always tell kids, it's like it's never about comparing yourself to other people. It's just about improving yourself, and from there, it's just time and effort. You know, like the difference between the guys that really build up these huge totals, like. Yeah, there's genetics involved and supplementation involved and all those things, but the difference about the people that get better and the people that don't is like how much time you're spending and how much energy you're spending in actually getting better. Because if you want to get better, you will.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, so social media is a bit of a blessing and sometimes a curse too, right? So you get trolls or whatever, and sometimes you get too wrapped up into what other people are doing and try to chase numbers, and you see a glimpse, the highlights of that guy's week or that guy's training cycle. You don't see when he's like his back off drop sets and all the other stuff he's doing. So if you try to go like, this is what he's doing, if I want to be like this guy, these are the weights I got to move. It's you know, you could be chasing some bad money right there. You know, just focus on you and get a little better.
And not only that, but also like there's so much information out there. You got people that are, you know, there's tons of podcasts, tons of YouTube channels, informational Instagrams, people posting programs, and there's so many different ideas because, like, the truth of the matter is it's all theoretical based, right? Like, nobody knows the exact science how to get stronger, and if there was only one way to do it, we'd all do the same one.
That's true.
But And then you get these younger guys that are reading all these different things, and they're like, oh, what about this, and what about that, why don't I try this? And you end up overextending yourself over too many different principles rather than just sticking to one thing and trying it out and seeing if it works. Because like, there's always going to be outliers to any programming, and there's always going to be exceptions to any rule, but you got to figure out where you are on that spectrum.
Yeah, and you know what, a lot of, like, we've had a few big name coaches on here, like Joey Flex, Mike T, whatever. Haven't had Chad Wesley yet. We had a lot of people from Juggernaut. We got to get Chad Wesley.
He runs one of the most informative YouTubes, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I watch it every week.
He's been around forever, and from all different types of strength athletes, too, and not just powerlifting. But most of these coaches will tell you there is no such thing as, you know, we do this way or we don't do that exercise. Mike T was saying, I'll almost listen to any exercise you think you want to add in if it works for you. Some people are like dead set against certain things, like you deadlift. You don't do touch and go, it's cheating. But then some people are like, well, if you want time under tension and you're going to do volume, you just want to keep the back tension on for big sets, and then you do full resets afterwards. You mix it in. It's not one or the other, and that's it. Or you know, there's a million different examples. That's the first one in my head. But a lot of people just tell themselves, like, you know, like, because obviously you got guys like Jesse Norris who are monsters doing tons of touch and go deads, you know, just to keep the back tension on, the hips and the back, almost like time under tension, like, you know, if you come from a bodybuilding style background. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. So oftentimes, you'll see a guy, like, read an article and then post, like, this is the way it is. Because I read an article, and this article said this, and that is that, where, you know, it's very rarely the case, especially when you talk to more and more guys like yourself and other athletes. Everybody's doing so many different things to get to the top. Yeah,
and I think, like, you kind of touched on it, like you got to know what you're doing, but more importantly, why you're doing it.
Yes.
Is in, just for the sake of, like, oh, I saw this guy try it, but if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish.
What's he doing there? Exactly.
Then you don't really need to be doing it.
But. Like if you follow Jesse Norris and you see him doing a shitload of volume, touch and go deads, is he doing that leading into his peak? No. He's probably doing that in his off-season building up conditioning and strength and whatever, right? So you don't want to just take something, pull it, and be like, that's what I'm doing right into my peak, and see what happens, right? It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
But
well, and it's like right now, right? Like you said, on the YouTube and everything, it's like information overload for people just starting out.
It's hard to filter.
And you take, you know, when you started as a personal trainer and you're 18, they had you to go to. You know, the internet was just coming out, all that.
Especially social media.
Now, like, I got people.
Social media is the biggest problem.
Yeah, I got kids coming in, well, what about this or what about that? I'm like, have you ever puked after squatting? No. I'm like, well, maybe you want to, you know, figure your intensity out, figure that out, know your limits, train for 6 months, kind of get in the groove before you start jumping in on all these things.
Kind of
work on your technique.
Kind of like Steve was saying. Like when you coach people, for instance, Steve, do you kind of streamline it with a template and be like, here's the basics I know work, and then we could start getting a little more personalized and adding things from there. But let's see what happens here, because everyone wants to add in the sexy stuff early, eh? Like they want to add in like things where it's like, you know what you're doing right now.
Why is that in there?
I think for me, like I come from a background of like more sticking to what works. And for me, that's always been like the bigger compound motions. Like, well, I always tell people, man, there's no tricks to what I'm doing. It's just a lot of hard work. But you know, you'll get guys that have never done a pause squat. Just a simple implementation of that specific motion for their squat that boosts their squat by 50 pounds. So it's depending on the background of the athlete and what their specific weaknesses are. You can kind of tailor it to what they need. But you know, everybody's pretty much, no one's redeveloping the wheel, right? No one's coming up with crazy exercises that no one else is doing. That's allowed. You know, I think the further you look into that, the more off the path you're going to go. And you just need to stick to a simpler program and put it in more effort.
You can start getting weirder and weirder with your programming. It's sort of like, I think I lost myself for a second. You know, like I added in some weird shit, and I really started losing, you know, the base, the foundation.
We call that desperation, man.
I think well, that's true too. I think Muhammad Ali said it best, where he said, "Work on the fundamentals, because the fundamentals will never change."
Exactly.
You are always going to squat dead and bench press and powerlifting. Work on that shit. Get that technique together and hammer those. The others, like, those will never change. You will never get away from it. So if ever you're going to start there.
And And I would say for me, like dealing with the athletes I have, it's the program is one aspect of it, but when you start to deal with guys that are trying, like, you know, if you're trying to increase your bench from 200 to 300 pounds, that's kind of going to come a little bit easier than someone that's trying to develop a 500 pound to 600 pound bench.
Oh yeah.
And the difference isn't necessarily the program and the accessories that they're doing. It's getting them to buy into like the sleeping, the recovery, the nutrition.
Yeah.
Like those are starting to be a bigger principle of that method than just the actual training.
Yeah.
Like you need to spend more time actively recovering in order to get ready for the next session.
You know, it's funny you touch up on that because, like, in terms of, so I started in 2007, and one of the biggest things I've noticed is previously we would just eat whatever the shit. We'd be chubby, we'd be whatever the hell. Our Wilkses were probably shit because we're all carrying on more weight than we needed to, and didn't even look at like nutrition at all. And now everybody is like, you have like straight on guys who are experts in nutrition, powerlifting, like doctors and stuff, powerlifting, name dropping like guys like Lane Norton and shit. But someone changed the game in terms of knowing nutrition, and now it's all part of it, and it makes sense. If you want to be
and the numbers grow every year, you know, like records get broken every.
And that's kind of why, because in terms of like the competitiveness, it's going way up with just this kind of knowledge. You know, everybody's up in their game further, especially with like nutrition and sleep and all that. Do you actually do macros or anything like that yourself, or as a heavyweight you don't really need to?
Yeah, for me, it's never been a big issue. You know, like I've definitely been, like I was talking about earlier, experimental with training. I've done the same with dieting. I've done ketogenic, paleo, intermittent fasting, and just all these different things to feel my body out. But I've been lucky enough with a healthier metabolism. Like if I'm trying to gain more weight, I eat more food.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to lose weight, I eat less food.
Yeah.
Like cut out the junk type of thing. But you know, I eat pretty well, and I know the nutrition that my body needs, so I try to get that in on a daily basis.
You know, it's funny, like when we're talking about people who are so set in stone, that's another thing where in terms of dieting, some people are so freaking dead set, we're like, this is stupid, you're doing it wrong, and they like talk like definitively.
It's because nutrition is the most debatable, controversial science that there is.
Yeah.
And the sad truth is we'll never be able to have the studies done to have a definitive answer about anything.
No, exactly.
I've heard it all on the Joe Rogan podcast. There was a guy who came on who said he only eats meat. And I mean, only meat. I was like, how the fudge? And I mean, in terms of like fats, proteins, I don't know, it's weird, but he said your body starts turning it into carbs or something like that.
It will.
He's
through glucogenesis, it will, if you eat so much.
Through glucogenesis. And this guy is a doctor. So things like, if you're like a layman like me, and you have like so many different doctors with so many different opinions, and when you hear them talk, you're like, well, that makes sense though. Like I totally think that you're not lying, but how the fudge am I supposed to be?
Listen to enough things, like the longer you listen, the more it'll start making sense.
Yeah.
It's like you get talking to anything with some of these guys.
No. Seriously, when I heard only eats meat, I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I thought like cats only eat meat. So I know it happens in nature, but it's like crazy. So when he sat down with Joe Rogan and was talking for like 2 hours, I was like, shit, man, I think I'm gonna only eat meat. It was crazy. He would sit down and have like 6 pounds of meat and have like one meal that day, because obviously you break it down slower and whatnot. But it was pretty crazy. But he was fit. He's in his 50s.
Maybe I could get to 275 if I do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would honestly
eat 6 pounds in one sitting.
When it comes to this kind of thing, I wouldn't rule anything out.
No.
You know, it's nuts. You know, it's in terms of it. One question I wanted to ask you: how do you think people should pick their coaches? If you had advice for people in terms of when they're, because here's another thing. Everybody and their mother's on their coaching, like you had said, and it's hard to filter for people. Like, how do you know? You don't know, right?
Yeah, man, like it is hard, because it's like in this day and age, you know, like there's so many different options. And I was like, having a college degree doesn't make you a good coach. Having tons of huge numbers under your belt doesn't make you a good coach. Mm-hmm. Like having years of experience doesn't necessarily make you a good coach.
I would be doing the same. See, it's too old school sometimes, and you're learning. Exactly. You know,
Not only that, but they could be overextended. You know, how much time are they really dedicating to the individual client?
100%. Yeah.
A lot of different factors with that, but I think some things to look at is like, one, you don't have to pick and choose one of those things, right? You can find plenty of people that have degrees, that have experience, that are actively pursuing their own passions in lifting. Like, I think those are all good signs, but I think the number one thing is look for somebody that has a little bit of success with other athletes, like referrals, having a friend that used them or know a guy that coached with them that had some success. I think having athletes that have succeeded under that regime is probably the best indication.
Yeah.
But I also personally like someone that is close enough to you that they can spend a little bit of time with you. I think there's a lot of guys that just strictly do the online, and like being somebody that works with people in person and people online, I would say like definitely in person you're going to have a little bit more of an advantage because it's harder to have those conversations over text and over email. But there are a lot of guys I work with online don't have anybody, so you're going to have to do somebody.
Yeah, you're remote, and anyone around is just going to be like a personal trainer type deal. So yeah.
Yeah, and like it's good to have a group of guys with you. Like I said, like I got a guy that does my programming, and then I get people that actually help me with the technique stuff.
Yeah.
Out of experience, so. But I would say like someone that has some successful athletes and also like shows interest in what you're actually doing. There's some big name guys out there that kind of just sell templates or just kind of give you what you need and check in with you every so often, but they're not really invested in how well you're doing.
It's fun. It's like, I'm glad you said that. That kind of reminds me, so without naming names, my girlfriend went to big name dude nutrition coach, right? She's having problems making this weight. Because with powerlifters, it's not just making the weight, but you got to be strong and feel good afterwards. It's a very hard balance sometimes. So went to a big name guy, big YouTube, big social media. Everybody would know who he is, and literally, like, she would tell him in emails, my body's dropping, but my body weight is going down, and I'm further than I need to be because I'm just going to water cut the last 5 pounds. Can we increase my macros? And then he would just shoot back. Sounds good. Let's stay on pace. And it's like, are you even reading my emails? Right. Do you know who I am right now? And you wonder, like, how many clients does this guy have? And does he even need to? As long as he's almost a social media guy, not a coach. So as long as he's extremely knowledgeable, very smart, has big name people who I'm sure he gives the attention to. So the big name athletes for sure. But as long as it's almost like marketing, keeping up with social media, he doesn't need to. These other people will come and go. I'll take your money, get your prep, keep it moving. And you're almost you're not better off with that guy who's tons of experience, tons of big name clients. But you don't know until you try it, and you're like, shit, this guy's overextended. This guy's overextended.
You don't really know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of the good coaches are expensive, and then some people have had bad experiences with that. So if you email somebody about coaching and they're not really asking you a bunch of questions or seem really invested, they just kind of give you an invoice for payment.
Yeah, exactly.
One email a month.
That's kind of a bad sign really there too. I only take on a certain number that I know I can give an adequate amount of time to the individual, because the programming in itself isn't all that difficult, and as far as time consumption goes, but it's like the form checking, the talking to the client, getting to know the individual's needs, because not everybody comes in like, I want to be a world champion one day. It's like they got specific goals that they're working towards, and then individualized obstacles too, I got a bad shoulder, or I can only lift 3 times a week because of work. So it's like taking the time to really figure those things out is what really is. It takes the majority of your time as a coach.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the biggest. Is like, you don't got to be in the game like 10 years necessarily or whatever shit. If you got a guy who wants to work with you, and he's 100% committed to making you better, and he's going to do the investigating to make her investigating to make you better. That's you're going to get way further with that individual than somebody who just doesn't have the time to put into you anyway.
Yeah,
right?
and that's kind of what I mean about like the referral.
If you
see an online ad, and like a lot of the guys that work with me then had a referral because I only started doing online this last year. But
you got to start somewhere. Yeah. Some guys are good. It doesn't mean you've been around forever, but you got to start somewhere. So it doesn't mean even as a coach.
17 years. It wasn't that I was new to the principles.
Yeah.
It was. I just never felt comfortable calling myself a powerlifting coach and only been in the sport for a year. I just wanted the accomplishments under my belt. really selfishly, it was just to focus on my own goals. So now I'm at a point where like I'm still definitely working towards things, but I'm also at a point where I could start spending a little bit more time and energy focusing on clients.
And how cool is it now? Like, I know what you mean, because I was lifting for a long time just myself. It took like a long time. I was just lifting, doing my own thing, and not coaching other people. Then eventually I started coaching people and became like a different kind of satisfaction and pride, where you're like, you know, you're proud of your accomplishments, but you almost talk about other people's that you coach. Like, it feels good to like help people get to certain things. You know what I mean? Certain goals. Like, it's a whole nother. I mean, it takes a lot out of you, and then you have to give a lot, but it's a big reward back.
No, I know. I was just talking to a group of guys, and I was like, you know, I definitely have some big goals of my own that I'm trying to accomplish this next year. But like, I was like, after I hit these numbers, you know, my next immediate goal is to find somebody and mold them into being better than me.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be known for. You know, I don't want to be the guy that, you know, just only helped himself get better. I want to make sure, like, when I'm old and in a position of no longer being able to do the things I can do, that I'll still be able to enjoy it through someone else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and the flip side of coaching, it's super hard if someone's like, this is a sport. You're not going to have a best day every single day. So there's nothing where it's like, it's amazing, it's highs and lows. I'm so anxiety ridden when I'm handling, and I see some people I've been with for years, and you're like, holy shit, if they have a bad day, you feel good. You feel like, did I let this person down? But it's day off. It's a bad game. It happens, right? Or when they have a big one, you're like, woohoo! You're like, yes, thank God. It's almost relief. It's almost relief as a coach, because you're like, I'm so fucking relieved.
My athletes than they do.
Yeah, dude. Especially like I coach my girlfriend. Dude, that's a bad ride home if it doesn't go well. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough, man. It gets hard. Sometimes it's not a good idea to coach your girlfriend. But that's how we met. Long story short. But yeah, do you coach your girlfriend actually?
No, so she does figure. She does figure competitor. I don't know that much about it. Like, I help her through her workouts, but she wouldn't listen to me even if I broke it.
So, you know, a lot of people say that too, where it's like sometimes you want a little separation because shit can get weird. You know, the coach client relationship.
Yeah, like just what I expect out of my athletes and the type of personalities that we have, like. She challenges me too much, which is great in a relationship sense.
Yeah.
But as a coach, you know.
Come on, man. You got to buy into this. Yeah. How important is it too to be dating someone who has a passion, kind of like you, even if it's not the same sport? Because I've been in different relationships where if this person doesn't understand what it's like to have a passion and be obsessed with it, it's hard.
The passion is very important, but I would argue that like if it's too similar, like if you're both high-level powerlifters, or if I was in the bodybuilding world, like when it's too close, then there's like some jealousy, rivalry stuff. I'm not saying everybody that is dating someone in the same sport, but for me, I know like how competitive I am, and it just works out better for us being into. Yeah,
that would be so. My girlfriend, I know what you mean exactly. She's got a friend, like another guy I'm coaching, Paul. They're competitive, like brother sister, trying to beat each other's Wilks. As long as my Wilks is better, we're okay. But she catches up. I either retire or we break up. That's how it has to go, man. You know.
Also, when you're training, you know, like you're gonna have your own ideas, and she's gonna have her own ideas, and like if it's if you're doing better at something than she is, or if she's doing better at something you are, you kind of like look at each other a little differently.
Yeah.
Whereas like my needs are so much different than her needs, it makes it really easy.
Yeah, you know what, that's true. And it does, you know, the best coaches don't have like the craziest Wilkses all the time, right? And a lot of times a coach will, like Joey Flex is a very solid, I'm just using him first because it's the guy I go to, but he's a very solid lifter, makes primetime USAPL nationals, but he's not going to hold, you know, anything over like a John Hack or a fucking Russell Wilhite, guys like that. So it's not, I know what you mean, where you kind of have to have that, look, I can outlift you, but it doesn't mean, you know, I got to listen to you. I got to buy in. If you're going to get a coach, buy in.
Well, and when you get, like you're talking about two guys, John and Russell, that are like very, very successful in their sport.
Yeah.
And when you get to that level, any top athlete, like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, like these guys still have to listen to other people, even though they're better at it.
Yeah.
Like,
so more than you stop.
It's being coachable. You know, one of the things that makes you successful is being coachable.
Yeah.
And kind of like what I told you, the mentality I adopted when I was playing football. You know, like I just listen to what other people have to say and stop listening to myself because I end up getting hurt too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, once the guy, you see in other sports, once you think you're bigger than you are and you think you've got it all figured out, that's when the young lion's going to overtake you. The young guy who's being coachable, who's doing everything he can. When I'm not Michael Jordan, but there are other athletes who just kind of bought into their own hype. Stop doing the little things. Stop listening to people around them. It's like, listen, man, I helped get you where you are. Trust me on this. And they're like, I got it all figured out type deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So listen, we've been here for a little bit. We could probably let you go, but I want to thank you for coming on. And a couple questions we always ask everybody who comes on. You sort of already hit it.
Yeah.
You sort of already got mine. He has one that he's going to ask you every time, but mine is, how would you like to be remembered? I think you already said you want to be remembered as a guy who helped other people come up.
Yeah, you know, like it's not so much of like what my numbers are, but like I definitely want to leave, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be powerlifting. Like my biggest passion is fitness, and I like helping other people. You know, I think as us here in America, obesity has become an epidemic, and it's sad, you know, like watching these morbidly obese children. So I think where I'd like my legacy or how I want to be remembered is helping other people to become healthy and definitely pursue their passions within that realm.
Mm-hmm. And you got one you always ask?
So talking about earlier with powerlifting growing and getting so much bigger, I always put these three things out there, and I want you guys as people, all these people look up to as beginners. So technique, intensity, and programming. 1, 2, 3. How do you put them in order?
In terms of
One more time.
Technique, programming, and then intensity. So
in terms of importance for a newbie?
Yeah. For a newbie, kind of how do you put those in order? What goes first? What's the most important? And so on.
Well, I think it'd be hard to argue technique not being number one.
Yeah.
So I would put that as number one. And then I in my opinion, I think the intensity, and it doesn't necessarily mean a higher intensity, right?
No.
Just learning when it's appropriate to push and when it's appropriate to pull or to sit back a little bit. I think that would be second. And then I think programming would probably be third.
You know, because it's interesting, I'm going to agree with you because I tell almost anybody, as long as you're in the gym lifting, you're going to get stronger.
Yeah.
So whatever program you are on, you're going to get stronger.
But if you get too crazy and you get hurt, then you're done.
As long as you're not overtraining, as long as you're within the proper...
Well, and that's one of the big things that to learn intensity. To learn what your proper intensities are.
Yeah.
Especially if I do RPE stuff with people. Learn what a true weight is versus, I just nose torque the shit, stomped around the gym, now I'm going to go hit this. That 8's no longer an 8. You're going to push a 10 for the same amount of reps, basically.
Yeah.
Or, we talk percentages, 95. You're going to take that 95 for a ride now when it should have just been a 90.
Yeah, like Steve was saying before, guys, just one of the biggest mistakes people do is just ride high all the time.
And I think programming, like you're talking about beginners and advice for that, but I think programming becomes more important as you start to develop higher and higher levels of strength.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it, when you're going from a 500-pound squat to a 600-pound, there's definitely going to be some more programming involved than just trying to get 300 or 400.
Yeah, I think early on, 100%.
Well,
like you said, if you're going to go for a coach, and some people just want to get a big name. Yeah. They just want, this guy's the biggest name, so they'll go like, Chad Wesley's an amazing coach. If you're a dead beginner, and you're going to get Chad from, you're from Toronto, and you're going to go get Chad, he can help you, but you might actually be better off a much, guy who's not as good a coach as Chad, but he's in the same city, because you need eyeballs on your technique, and you need like so much coddling. 3-4 years in, you know all your technique, whatever. Now you can go to Chad.
Yeah.
Now Chad's like, thank you.
There's always, you got to leave yourself a little bit of room to grow. You start at the best, it's going to be hard to.
And he can't be there with you to hold your hand and get all these you send videos, but it's a lot easier.
Well, that's what I started. I bought one of Chad's books, and there was a bunch of programs in it. I'll do that one. And I did it, and then I went to the second phase, and like Steve was saying, I couldn't get out of my car by that point, and crawled down the steps, and I'm skinny dude, 6'4", 240, trying to do powerlifting, so it's. And I'm all legs, so that recovery thing's all got to be through the roof for me, and there's got to be tons of calories there. But now I know a little better. Squatting twice a week at the volumes. How Chad's hypertrophy programs work. They're a lot of volume. So, just to know, well, that's what it takes. And that's the food you need to implement. That's the recovery, the sleep, the nutrition.
Real quick before I let you go, you just brought up an interesting question. I'm actually, how many calories do you think you eat a day? I'm curious, that's a 300-pound man.
Like my cycles of weightlifting change, so does my eating.
Yeah.
And like there's times where I'm maintaining, but I would say on a daily basis, I'm in between like 4,000 to 6,000. Depending on the training and things like that.
Yeah, that's not, because I'm waiting for the guy who says like 10,000 calories.
Yeah.
You're huge too.
No, I think like for me, if I keep my protein high enough, like I'm able to maintain, and then just a little bit of extra fat and carbs is what I need when I'm trying to get a little bit bigger. But, at my heaviest, I've only been 305. So I'm not like one of these strongman competitors that need 10,000 calories.
Yeah. And do you think if you're going to fill out that weight class, you're going to start eating more?
Yeah, I mean, I'm walking around like 290. I was like 298 at the end of the day a couple weeks ago, and I'm just kind of in that maintenance phase. So I know when I like need to step on the gas and like start eating and training the way I need to do it, I'm gonna get over 300 pretty fast.
Ooh, yeah.
Also, I just started programming. My calories went way up.
Yeah. Like, how good does it feel when you're eating like a stud? How good does it feel to go in the gym and just smash weights?
Oh, yeah.
You have that much calories in you? Makes it so much easier.
I struggle with some anxiety stuff, so like there's a lot of times I'm in phases where I can't eat as much, and it's like more of a chore, Like I gotta sit down and I don't enjoy it at all. But I make sure I get the calories in. But right now, man, life's going good. I feel good, and the weights are moving well in my off season, and I'm just crushing food. So it makes me pretty optimistic.
Yeah. How good does it feel to weightlift? If you got any kind of anxiety issues or whatever, it's such a therapeutic. Like in terms of when you have hundreds of pounds on your back, you're present. You're present. You're never more present. When you have 500 pounds in your hands and you're hitting it for 7, you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
You can't. It's literally like meditation when they say be present and allow all these other feelings leave. You are ever so present when you're weightlifting. That's why it is therapeutic. People are like, I can't put my finger on it. Well, you release all these endorphins, and it's like a meditated present state that you're going to be in for however many hours that day. It's incredibly therapeutic.
The people that aren't doing it are the ones dealing with a lot more. Like I could only imagine what my anxiety would be like if I didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you get like a caged lion in the zoo.
Yeah.
It's not a physical. Like, they're just depressed as shit.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, as far as totals go, are we looking 869 now or 868?
Yeah, I mean, I still got to get 8, 6, and 8. Like that was my goal for this last meet. Like I know I'm in a position now where those are going to be. I don't want to say easy. But a couple of those will be like openers and second attempt for me now. So I would say my immediate goal, like I talked a little bit about bypassing 2,200, and I was going to just shoot for 23 right away. But I think like realistically, I'll get 8, 6, and 8 in a meet here pretty soon. I think my back's feeling healthy. I think I'm ready to go. So I want to do that, get it off my back. It should be. That'll be like a 9 for 9 meet for me. Right. Being a little bit more conservative, and then at the end of the year, I want it to go like it probably won't be 9. It'll probably be like 824, 622, and then like an 860, 881, depending on how my deadlift develops over the next. But that's my goal for the end of the year.
Nice. Mm-hmm. It is January. That's around the 1,000 kilo total, right?
1,000 would be 2,200. Yeah. So like 23 is a little bit. I think it's like 1,015.
Because that 1,000 kilo total is what everybody kind of chases. That's the big one.
Yeah. So that was my initial goal getting into the sport. 8, 6, and 8. I think was something that I heard some elite lifters talking about being like well developed. Like a lot of guys are just chasing one of those numbers. They want a 600 pound, 800 pound dead. So I think like getting all 3 in a full meet, kind of signifies you as like being a really well-rounded guy. So I think that's,
Yeah, that's what we were saying before we interviewed you, that you're not just one special lift. You're pretty well-rounded, which is good if you're going to be coaching, you got to be. Right? It is what it is.
But I still got to get that off my belt. Definitely the 800-pound squat is something I've never done before. Feeling confident for it, but then I'll move on to bigger goals.
Sounds good, my man. Well, listen, thanks for stopping in. Love to have you back. Appreciate the time. Is there anybody you want to thank, or any sponsors or anything before we let you go?
Hey, I'd like to give a shout out to HVI Brand Goods, supplying all my, like this beautiful shirt I'm wearing. I only align myself with companies that are good people, and I would say Matt Vincent over there has done a really good job with the company, and also a big shout out to my supplement sponsor, B Sports Nutrition, for giving me. We're talking about pre-workout and getting ready for the lifts. Definitely been a game changer for me. So. And
if someone wants to contact you for coaching, how do they get a hold of you?
You can find me on Instagram, PT Fitness 500. Just shoot me a DM. Like I said, there's a waiting list right now, but I get openings every couple of months, so you never know.
Just roll the dice.
Well, that sounds good, man. Thanks for coming on. Much appreciated. And good luck with training.
Yeah, man. Fun, guys.
Have a good one, man.
Have a good one, man.
All right, guys. Take care.
It's funny. For a guy my size, 5'9", floating around 190. When he says I'm only around 300 right now, Jesus, man, this guy's a monster.
I think I feel I'm an inch taller than the guy. He's like, I'm scratching my head to get to 250 right now. I'm like, come on.
I was a little, I ate 6,000 calories is quite a bit. But when he said around sometimes 4,000, I was like, holy shit. Because there were at points where I was kind of getting around 4,000 when I was doing, like, it's summertime. I'm outside a lot more.
I bet you a lot of his is protein, though.
That's
he's jacked up. He's pretty. Yeah. I mean, even probably right now, he's pretty lean considering.
He's got abs. Yeah, like he's a 300-pounder with abs.
Yeah.
But man, it feels so good to eat and just like go in there and smash weights when you're dieting. Sometimes
it's been insane. Like this past 3 weeks, because I knew it was coming, so I started eating more and more. And now I'm like 2 cups of rice at a time. Like it's just like I put it in a separate bowl, and then my steak and whatever's on this plate, my rice is over here, and I'm just like, all right. And then I'll sit down. And I'm like, oh, so some naan bread and hummus. Like I don't know.
Man, I'm so jealous.
And then a protein shake, and I'm just trying to pound it back, and like it's slowly coming on. That's the thing I gotta. You get into these phases, and you're just like you hit it hard, and then you kind of tail off because life gets in the way, or you get busy, so you gotta like be pre-planned for all this, and it's like have it ready.
That's that bulk plan. Yeah, I've seen a documentary with freaking it's on Netflix right now, so people probably saw it. Born Strong.
Oh yeah.
They talked to the strong, and they said like eating when you're that size. Well, they're 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Is like a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
Like they are constantly force-feeding themselves to be that big. To the point you get sick and you're like, I know it looks good. I know it sounds like it'd be a blessing to eat as much as you want. You eat as much as we want, and then we eat some more. It gets gross.
Well, I was getting tired last night. Like, get home, or the other, whatever night it was, we got back from the gym a little late, and I'm sitting there, and I got my rice, and I got like 6 pork cutlets sitting there, and I'm chopping them up with sauerkraut and stuffing them in my face, and I got the rice, and I'm just
stuffing them in my face.
I'm like breaking a sweat after the gym.
These strong men, I think Eddie Hall said, he'll wake up in the middle of the night to have he'll set his alarm, wake up in the middle of the night, crush 1,000 calories, because he has to, because he can't eat enough. So they wake up in the middle of the night to force feed themselves. God, and on the topic of eating, we were talking earlier before we came online about Isabella von Weissenberg cutting to 63. Now a lot of people are talking about this. Dude, she's rocking abs at 75 kilo, and she's going to drop 10 kilo, which is 22 pounds for our American friends. That's a freaking huge cut. When you got abs at 75 and you can drop 22 pounds.
Well, and that's like
because you coach people.
Well, that's So I coach a lot of natural female competitors, and over the time, the one thing, it's kind of a known thing among that group of girls when they're getting ready for physique, figure, bikini, whatever it is. The legs generally come in last. So the legs will be the last thing to lean out. So Isabella doesn't post a lot of those type of photos or shots, right? So the thing I'm the same way. I stay fairly lean in the front, but in the back I look like a saggy water bottle. So, these things, they'll be very, very last second where they come off because women's hormones are generally carried in the legs. Their progesterone and estrogen are carried in the legs, and you can generally see it. I notice it most in the females that stay very lean up top. And then they carry their legs generally are still lean, just not as lean as everything appears to be up front or in their lower back. And it's a bodybuilding thing, right? You see it, and guys talk about it in bodybuilding all the time. Oh, my lower back's still holding water or whatever the case. So she could be one of those. She could be just naturally very lean up here, and the body fat's just holding on a little bit in the lower half, and because she doesn't post a lot of those type of shots, she doesn't need to.
Because it is like, it's interesting. That's the thing. Like if you just, it's not really my world, so I can just see a pic with abs, but it doesn't.
Well, and it's a big hormonal thing too, right?
Is that another thing that you worry about? Because for girls, you get too lean, the hormones get off.
Well, and then
fuck some things up.
I have a general rule dieting females for the most part. I don't cut their fats very low. I'd rather have them have the carbs and, cut the carbs back a little more, because once you go down past a certain amount of healthy fats, that's when their hormones start to kind of get all triggered, and you don't know what's going to happen. And it could mess with a lot of things. Hormones do a lot more than people realize, with serotonin, dopamine, all that kind of stuff. So you want to keep that generally a healthy aspect and not cut it too low. What you do see is in bodybuilders, who are enhanced, they can cut their fats down to like 40, 45, I think.
Because they're putting in extra.
Because they're putting in exogenous hormones anyways, so it kind of replicates what's going to happen. So that's what with the natural side, it's two totally different spectrums. And with the female enhanced girls, it's kind of the same as the male enhanced, where they're using exogenous, whatever it may be. So their diets can be completely different. They can cut their fats down really low, keep their carbs a little higher, have a little more energy, But it all depends too. It all depends on the person. It depends on, I do a lot of historical background, where they're from, what their body digests the best, that kind of stuff. Another, Stan Effernan uses a vertical dieting template a lot, where it's basically red meat, rice, certain triggers to help gain weight, certain triggers to help lose weight. And that's kind of how I'm trying to bulk, is just tons of rice and red meat, and it seems to be working. I haven't had heartburn in a month, which is rare for me, especially with all the consumption of food.
Fuck, I'm so jealous.
But don't be jealous. You got legs like toothpicks like me.
I would love to just crush food. I end up all torso. No fucking legs. My legs stay skinny, and I just turn into a fucking walking torso with too little. So basically, bottom line, Isabella very well made.
Very well could do it without any hassle, without any issues.